Welcome to another edition of Inside Town Hall. I'm Jim Cameron, host of this program director of Darien TV 79. And you, as a faithful viewer, know that Inside Town Hall is an interview program where we talk to the folks who work inside Town Hall, hence the name, and help run our town government. Our guest today on the program is Kathy Larkins. She is the town tax collector. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim. I think the last time I was on the show was June of 2013, as Bob Locke, my predecessor, was retiring, and I was coming on. So it's been a while.
Well, that just brings us perfectly to one of my first questions, which is to tell us a little bit about your background, your education, how long you've been working for the town, and then we'll talk about the exciting job of tax collector.
Okay, so I have a degree from the University of Connecticut in business with a major in accounting. I earned that degree in 1982 and then went straight to work for a Fortune 500 company called Combustion Engineering. Worked in a variety of financial responsibility jobs from 1982 until 1989. Literally left the office, and I was pregnant at the time with my first, and went to the hospital, right from work to the hospital. So yeah, and my husband was over in Japan. So it was kind of an interesting way to start that whole family thing. And then basically took some time to raise my family. And then when I came back into the workforce, I came to the town of Darien and actually the tax office, working as a part-time clerk. So I started in November of 2011 and right away started working on my certification. And it was about, I don't know, maybe 9 months into that Bob decided that he was going to retire. And that he started working on getting me, I guess he endorsed me and supported me to take over for him.
And you are elected, not appointed, as tax collector. Is that right?
Right. That is correct.
How often are you on the ballot?
I'm on the ballot every 2 years. So I will be it's every odd year. So I will be on the ballot again this year. And each of our terms are 2 years. And I have to go through a process where I am interviewed by the RTC, which is a 21-member panel. And that happened back in February or March, I think it was. So I've already gone through that process, and then that body will decide whether they will endorse me or not. And if they do, then I will be on the ballot in November. And then the Democrats also have the opportunity to put an opponent up against me as well.
Have the Democrats or any other party ever run someone against you, or is this just the first time I had competition within the party, the Republican Party, and I also had an opponent in the general election. So luckily, I persevered. Good for you. Now, you have an acronym after your name and title. CCMC. What is a CCMC? What does that designate?
So a CCMC is a Connecticut Certified Municipal Collector. And in order to achieve that designation, there are 4 classes that you have to pass. There's a test after each course, and then there's a comprehensive exam that you have to get a particular score or above. And then once all that is passed, there's also a work experience requirement, and that's a 3-year work experience requirement. Once you achieve that designation, you every 5 years, you're required to recertify. And in order to do that, you have to earn at least 50 credit hours of continuing education. And that's something that's relatively new. The assessors have had it for a long time, but on the collecting side, it's only been in place for maybe 3 years.
You mentioned the assessors. We did an interview a while back with Tony Hamicki, who is the town tax assessor. Mm-hmm. He's the one that determines how much you're going to be taxed. And right. Your job, I hope I'm not oversimplifying this, is to collect that money. Is that
That's right.
fair
That's
enough?
Right. Yeah, he's responsible for identifying, valuing, and listing all taxable property. And then it comes over to my side and I'm responsible for collecting. So a lot of people will say, you know, my taxes are too high. I want to appeal my taxes. But in actuality, they really have to appeal their assessment.
And there's a hearing process to do that. Once you get the assessment of your property from the town tax assessor,
right,
you can go down and argue. It's rare that we argue that our property isn't worth as much as we're told it is.
Right.
It's usually we're saying, no, it's worth more. But in this case, you want to have your property assessment low to keep
yes.
your taxes low, is right?
Yes.
How many people work in the tax collector's office?
So in addition to myself, who's considered full-time, there's a full-time, we call her a revenue collector. She's full-time, and then there's an assistant collector. And then there's a part-time person that works, she's considered like a 60%, I guess her hours based on a full-time schedule, she'd be considered a 60% employee.
And your office is located on the first floor of Town Hall?
Yeah, we make it very convenient. We don't want you to exert yourself when you come in to pay. So literally you come in the front door of Town Hall, you turn left, we're the first office on the left past the receptionist, room 104. And
you're open how many days and what hours?
Okay, so we're open just like the rest of Town Hall, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5:15. We do have a lot of things online, so even though we may not be open, you are still able to pull off tax bills, make payments, any of that.
So how many different taxable properties are there in town that you have to keep track of and make sure the taxes get paid?
So on the property tax side, there's real estate. There's personal property, which is business assets. So things like computer equipment, furniture and fixtures, leasehold improvements, and then your motor vehicle. And then there's also in the motor vehicle category, there are trailers that are used to haul boats, but boats are not taxable property. It's really anything that is on the road is considered subject to taxation. And then, so that's a property tax part of the job. I'm also charged with collecting sewer service billings, and that comes from the sewer department, as well as sewer assessment billings, which are when the infrastructure is put into the road so that neighborhoods can connect to the sewer. All those costs are accumulated, and then the sewer department will determine what properties are on that infrastructure, and then they get billed their percentage portion of those costs. And those are usually over 20 years. And there are interest rates and other things that I have to take into account when I do the billings on those particular things.
And when are taxes due in Darien?
Okay, so property taxes, we're on a fiscal year of July 1 through June 30. So the new bills come out July. First installment is due in July. Second installment is due the following January. Once the bills come out, you can pay by installment, or you can pay the full amount upfront. Also, car bills are usually just in July. The full amount is due in July. Personal property, if the bill is $100 or more, it's split into 2 installments. Otherwise, that full bill is due in July as well.
So when you say that the taxes are due July 1st, there's also a grace period, right? Is it 30 days? Remember?
Right. The rule of thumb, and you have until the first day of the next month. So the July installment, the absolute last day to pay is August 1st. The January installment, the absolute last day to pay is February 1st. However, if that either August 1st or February 1st falls on a weekend, then a weekend day, then you have until the following Monday, whatever date that is.
And do you get a parade of people coming down at the last minute to pay their taxes?
You know what, we used to, but now that we offer the online option, we'll see a lot more payments toward the end of the month online.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that new efficiency of paying online in a moment. Kathy Larkins is our guest today. She's the town tax collector. People Are people in a bad mood when they come to your office to pay their taxes?
It depends. And we really do. And I have to say, Alyssa, our cashier, she is amazing with people. So she can turn a bad situation into a great situation pretty easily. But look, no one wants to write these hefty checks, and we get it. But we all have to do it. It's part of, being part of a community. And we have amazing schools here, an amazing library, amazing police force, fire. That comes at a cost. And I think this town, especially Jamie Stevenson and Kate Bush and Monica McNally, have done an amazing, and our Board of Finance have done an amazing job of really managing the town finances and keeping the taxes as low as they possibly can.
Are the taxes lower in Darien than in comparable towns?
Well, I guess our most the best comparable would be New Canaan, and their mill rate is a bit higher than ours. And I would have to say that, in my opinion, I think the finances here in Darien are managed better than New Canaan. So we are paying low comparatively.
You're allowed to brag, I guess.
And I'm not taking credit for any of that.
No, I understand. You just have to collect it.
That's right.
What is the collection rate? How many people, or what percentage of all the tax bills actually get paid?
Well, luckily, my collection rate's pretty high. I usually end the year around 99 point, very high 7, low 8s. You have to also factor in that there are certain things that I am not allowed to pursue collection on. One would be, say, people that are in litigation with the town over their assessment. They're required to pay usually 90%, so that 10% is uncollectible until the litigation settles. Also, elderly deferrals. Those are a form of tax relief, and they have to wait until certain conditions happen, and then they become collectible. So that does have the impact of lowering my rate. But all being said, I'm still lucky that my rates have been pretty high.
99.7% is pretty close to perfect. What happens to that 0.3%, or those people that have not paid their taxes on time? How do you make sure you get them paid?
Well, there's a variety of methods that we can use to enforce collection. And, there are times when we cannot, someone files bankruptcy and they have no assets, then there's nothing we can do on that. We do file liens on properties for unpaid sewer assessments, property taxes.
What's a lien? Let's talk about that for a second. What's a lien?
It's, basically a hold on that property that gives the town the legal right to collect whatever the claim is against that property. And our liens are superior to IRS liens, Department of Revenue Services liens, and a mortgage lien. So we're in first position to collect when the property conveys. The town will get the money.
When you say conveys, in other words, when the property gets sold,
exactly,
you're going to get your taxes first, and then anyone else is waiting in line gets paid, and then whatever's left goes to the person who's selling it, right?
Right. Yes.
And do some of these collections take a long time? I mean, are you still working on trying to collect money from previous years on some of those properties?
I only have maybe 7 properties that have some prior year taxes. So out of just under 7,100 parcels, that's really not that bad. And there's only one property that's about 4 years outstanding out of that group. And, they're making partial payments. So, sometimes you have to give people a little bit of grace. There's a lot of things going on in people's lives that are difficult. And so, I try to work with them. But honestly, I think we're in really good shape here.
But if you don't pay your taxes on time, there are fees and interest. Well, there are interest charges after that point, right?
Right. So once you're even a day late, the statutory interest rate of 18% per annum kicks in. So if it's August 2nd and you haven't paid, then you get hit with 3% interest charge. It's 1.5% for July, 1.5% for August. We are not allowed to prorate. We are not allowed to waive. It's all against state statute.
So it's each month. It's not the number of days.
No, it's each month. Right.
Now, some people don't pay their taxes directly to the town because they have a mortgage with the bank. Mm-hmm. And the bank is supposed to pay the taxes. Right. What if I find out that my bank has not been paying my taxes?
So there's a couple of things. I mean, if the bank isn't paying because you paid off your mortgage and there's no longer an active escrow on it, normally the bank, along with the check, will send a letter basically saying you need to contact your municipal tax office and let them know to start sending you the bills directly. So that's one situation. The other would be if the bank didn't pay and they should have paid, then they should be responsible for any penalties or interest. Mm-hmm. And there are, I'm still working with some banks that should have paid in January that haven't, and I'm still trying to get the money. But again, they're going to be responsible for the interest.
You mentioned that there are some new efficiencies that you've been able to bring to the tax collection process, one of which is that you don't have to physically come down to town hall with a check or a suitcase full of money to pay your taxes. You can actually do it online in a couple of different varieties. How does that work?
Okay, so you can pay your taxes. And when I say taxes, that also includes your sewer use and sewer assessment bills through the town website. There are fees, and a lot of people don't understand why we charge fees, but it's a payment. There's a vendor that provides the payment portal. They have to, like every time you use a debit or credit card, there are fees that your bank charges for, the exchange fees that they have to pay, as well as when you have award points, there are costs that are associated with those. So the fees are basically to cover all of that, and the town shouldn't have to pay for those because A, we can't budget for it, and B, for the taxpayers who opt not to use a credit or debit card, they shouldn't be penalized for someone that does. So anyway, so that's why we have to charge fees, and the fees go to the payment vendor, and the vendor settles with the credit card companies and the banks. So you have three different options if you're going to pay online. Option one would be to pay with a credit card. There's a 2.5% fee of whatever your bill total is, or a $2 minimum. You can pay with a debit card, which is a $3.50 flat fee, and you can also pay with an electronic check, which is a $1.50 flat fee. And with the electronic checks, and actually all of these, you can load up multiple bills onto one payment. So you could pay your house, 5 cars, whatever, all on one e-check, and that's a $1.50 charge, which is pretty close to what postage is. As well as you don't have to worry about your check getting lost in the mail or, being taken out of the mail by a fraudster or whatever. So and you get an email confirmation that's date and time stamped. So there's a lot of benefits of paying online.
And what percentage of your tax bills get paid online using either credit cards or electronic funds transfer?
It's interesting. It's been trending upward. I would say the first year we did it was maybe about 5%. We're probably up to about 15%. And every year the online payments seem to increase.
Kathy Larkin's our guest today. She's the town tax collector. Does anybody ever come in and pay their taxes in cash?
Yes.
Really? We're talking a fair amount of cash there. Like, do they come in with a brown paper envelope or a briefcase with unmarked 20s? How do they do this?
Well, I mean, they come in, with it kind of hidden or whatever, but there are some, not a lot. But yeah, and we have a really good cash counter. One time I had someone who was very unhappy that he had to pay motor vehicle taxes, and he came in with $1,100 in ones. And he was like, you have to take it. And I was like, fine, no problem, but you're going to have to wait for me to count it, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So, another guy came in with pennies one time. So We didn't have a counter then, so we didn't take the pennies, but he came with ones and we took those.
Is it legal to pay for a tax bill with pennies these days?
You know what?
I'm sure you accommodated him in the most gracious manner possible, right?
You know what? It's legal tender, right? So we can take it.
And that many pennies, we need to get back into circulation.
Well, I don't think you can get that many pennies anymore.
Yeah. What happens to the tax? If I write a tax check to the town, Darien tax collector, and I walk in and I deliver it, and I pay for my property tax or my yacht or whatever it is we're taxing, what happens to the check then? How does it get processed? Do you wait and you go up to the bank at 3:00 in the afternoon, or do you have one of those gizmos that can read the checks and automatically deduct the money?
Okay, so if a check comes in here, it depends on what comes along with the check. If it comes with, say, during July, it comes with a pre-printed ticket that we provide, it will go to what's called our lockbox, which is with M&T Bank. So it basically goes into a tray. We have a courier come, picks up the tray, hand delivers it that day to Bridgeport, where they have their lockbox operations. And then later that day, we'll get a secure file with all the payments on it. Then we download the file. As long as everything matches, we'll then post the file. If we're going to process the payment in-house, then what will happen is we enter it on our tax software, and then we do it in batches. So then once the batch is done, we have to balance the batch. And then we have a remote capture device, which scans the checks, which is in our office. So we make the deposit in the office.
So you get the money into the town's account ASAP.
Oh, we do.
Right.
You know, it used to be that there was some float. People figured they had 5 to 7 days from when the tax collector, when they put in the mail or whatever. Not anymore. We process pretty much every day. We get through the mail pretty much every day. It's very rare that we don't process all the mail we get the same day.
Well, we're not getting a whole lot of interest on our money these days, so there's not the incentive as there used to be to pay things later if we possibly can. Might as well just get the Band-Aid off and get it over with. Can I tell if my neighbors have been paying their taxes? Is
Yes.
the payment of taxes a public piece of information? How do I find that out?
Well, you could, if you, when you go onto the town website to pay your own taxes, you could search under your neighbor's name and see if they've paid theirs, how much their payment is. So yes, that information is out there.
Yes, and as the town tax assessor, Mr. Homicki, pointed out, all of the assessments are also available online. So I can look at my neighbor, comparable houses in my neighborhood, and see what the assessments were like. Let's talk about something you hinted at just to kind of wrap things up a moment ago, and that is people who get their taxes deferred. Now, how do I get a tax deferment, and not a reduction, but a delay in when I have to pay it?
Okay, so tax deferrals, the whole process is actually handled by the assessor's office, but you have to qualify based on age and income. And there are two different plans, Plan A and Plan B. One is you get to defer, you pay 2%, you defer 98%. The other, you defer 50% and you pay 50%, defer 50%. The application time period is between February 1st and May 15th of 2023. So you basically, if you're going to apply for that, you have about 20 more days. And there are different, so let's see. So you're required to make either 2% or 50% payment. The rest gets deferred. That deferred amount is subject to a lower interest rate than the 18% statutory rate. That lower interest rate is based on the STIF rate from the state of Connecticut. And then the deferral basically ends when the property either conveys or the applicant passes away. So that's kind of how that all works.
So let's say I owed the town $1,000 and I was over age. What's the cutoff age?
65.
If I'm over age 65,
point in time in the year,
right? And I have I'm not earning as much money as I used to, so I'm below a certain threshold as well too. Then I get to only pay either 2% or 50% of the taxes now, but the rest of that tax bill comes due when I sell my house or my heirs sell the house as well too.
Right.
So you are going to get your pound of flesh one way or the other. It just gives me a little more time because maybe I'm house rich, but don't have a lot of cash. I have a lot of equity in my house, but I haven't got the cash on hand to keep paying for it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't want people moving out of town because the taxes are too high. We'd like them to stay if they can.
And that's part of the reason to offer programs like this is, when you think about it, if you have a household without school-age children, that's actually saving the town a lot of money. So there is an incentive to keep people who are older, as well as all the things that they add to our community. So I think it's a really, really good thing to offer these types of tax programs.
Excellent. Well, on that positive note, let's wrap things up. I'm going to put in the closing credits to the show your contact information, your office hours, the website address if people want to get more information, and they can find out more about the tax deferral program or how to carry $10,000 in pennies to your office for the next payment that's due. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up, Kathy?
No, just the one thing, and this seems to happen quite a bit, is people will get tax bills on cars that they no longer own, and they ignore them thinking it's a mistake. It's never a mistake. They're all based on registrations by DMV. And honestly, we'd rather you call us, find out what the situation is rather than, disregard them and our notices, because the interest does add up very quickly. And then you're prevented from doing things at DMV. And I just, anything you get from our office, please don't disregard, look at it, call us, any questions. We're happy to help in any way that we can.
Not answering the mail does not answer the problem, right?
No.
Exactly. Kathy Larkin, our guest today in the program, she is Darien's tax collector. I thank you very much for your service to the town, and thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you, Jim.
And thank you, our faithful viewers, for watching another edition of Inside Town Hall.